Okay, what is up, guys? My name, of course, is Carl, and welcome to another Talks podcast show. And in this season, we are going to try to speak to as many as the Elm Street cast as we possibly can. And
Mm.
today, I am honoured to have the beautiful Beatrice Boepple
Yep,
in the
you got it
house.
right.
In the
Yay.
house, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. It's nice and bright and morning-ish here. Well, it's almost lunchtime here in New York. So you guys are almost supper time, right? Or
Yes, it's currently 4:15.
oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah,
tea time. Is that tea
tea
time?
time. It is tea time. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, it is
lovely.
tea time. So how have you been? How's things going over there?
Things are going great. It's been a very super busy year for me. This is my second year that my kids are out of the home. Both my sons have, one graduated college, the other one is in his second year of college, and so I'm what they call an empty nester. And as such, I've been able to go back to my career, which is acting and the whole business there. But in addition, it's been mostly actually attending conventions. I've been booked into so many conventions this year, horror conventions and film conventions and Comic Cons and such. So I'm getting to travel all over the place. And one of the places will be coming to the UK this fall in September to the Birmingham Comic Con. It might be called Birmingham Comic and Collector Fest
I
or
know they've got
some.
one. So they've got For the Love of Horror. That's
Okay.
happening in November. That's
Yeah.
not you, is it? That's not For the Love
No,
of Horror,
let's
no.
see. Let me see if I have it. Oh, it's called, let's see, September. Oh, am I lying? Is it not September? Where is my Birmingham? Um, oh, I have the wrong calendar up. These are for my films. I'm doing a lot of filming. But yeah, it's all I know is it's in Birmingham and it's in September.
So
So,
I'll post links in the descriptions. I'll get all that detail. So if you want to go over to Birmingham, if you're in the UK, or even if you're not in the UK and you want to meet Beatrice, I'll pop the links in the description below, where hopefully you can grab some tickets and go and say hello,
yes.
get an
Yeah,
autograph, get a picture.
exactly.
So
And
let's go to the beginning, back to the beginning. Um, what made you want to become an actress? How did it all start for you?
how did it all start? I think a number of things led me to want to be an actor. I was in plays from the time I could be in plays since I was a little kid. Um, we lived in Japan for 4 years when I was a little girl. We moved to Japan when I was 5 years old, and I went to a Japanese nursery school or Japanese kindergarten, and then from there Japanese school for first, second, and third grade. And so of course I had to learn to speak Japanese really quickly. And in the beginning, I couldn't. And they were doing a little school play in kindergarten. And I remember I had to be either the dog or cat because they could say dog, cat, but they couldn't say anything else. So that's what I would be. And I think, it was fun to be on stage and get applause and whatever. And then I also found then when we moved back to the U.S., there's, without going into much detail, there was a lot of traumatic things that happened in my childhood. And I found that imagining that I was the heroine, no, heroine? That sounds like the drug. I don't know, whatever. The hero, the female hero of my own life story, which we are, of course, but imagining that I was on TV, somehow it just made it more bearable. Like when I was going through bad things, I just somehow imagined that it was a movie, and it helped me kind of distance myself from, I guess, from taking the pain too personally. I don't know. I don't know what you want to say, but it's some sort of psychological thing. So I found it an escape. So I got into it more. I would imagine that I was on TV or on stage. And then, of course, I did physically get involved being on TV and stage through my schools. I always was in the drama club. And then when it came to university, I was torn between either going to an equestrian college, because I loved horses, or theater school. And mostly it came down to dollars. I could not afford an equestrian college, so I went to theater school at my local university, and it was the best decision ever. Obviously, it was wonderful. And I was living at the time. At this time, I was living in Canada, in British Columbia, and I was on Vancouver Island, and in Vancouver was considered Hollywood North. And in a way, it still is. There's so many things being filmed up there. So there was, you know, never a shortage of projects to work on it. And what I loved about the film, well, the acting community in British Columbia, which was very different than Hollywood, is they really honored you as an actor. If you're an actor, you're an actor. That means you're trained. You have classical training. You know, you've done Shakespeare. You've also had all the background stuff too. You have to do a little bit of set design and lighting and sound, and just so that you're aware of all the different aspects. Um, they didn't focus too much on film when I was there. So that I kind of had to learn on my own, the difference between performing on stage and performing on screen,
Yeah.
which is very, very different. But I had to learn and I had to tone it down. I mean, the first few performances on TV when they're in close up, I overacted for sure, not realizing that you don't have, your eyes, you can just, feel something in your eyes and it'll come across. But anyway, but what I loved about it was we all got to just be busy being actors. So one day you could be the lead on stage or have a lead role in a film, and the next day you have just a one line bit. The next day you do a commercial. The next day you go back to this. You just work. You just work, and nobody judges you. They don't put you in a little, bracket like, oh, you are only lead star, or you're
Mm.
only background, or you're only this or you're that. They don't do that. They just understand that we're actors and we need to work. So we're all just working all the time, and it's nice because in a way the whole town felt like a theater company. When you travel with a troupe, they usually let you take turns. Somebody's the lead in one show, but they're playing the, support, or the spear holder in the other play, and it's just keeping busy. And I love that. And that was the community I started with. So then when I moved to Los Angeles, it was a completely different ball game. I think they're getting better, but back then it was like you're either film
Mm.
or your TV or your stage. You don't really cross. And then within that, you're either the lead or you're the guest star. They compartmentalized everybody and just put you down in things.
Yeah.
And that was very, very unpleasant for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. So tell us, tell us a little bit about your first gig, should I say, acting role, and how you managed to get that role, in essence.
Well, yeah. Well, my first, I mean, I had, my acting gigs were many, but my first paying gig, which I think you mean, was right out of theater school. I was fortunate. I got an agent right away. I got a very, very good agent in Vancouver. Um, why did he give it? Why did he take me on? I guess because I was good. No, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can't remember. I don't think I had to audition for him. But in any case, and I just started working right away. I started doing all kinds of stuff. But my very, very first paying gig was a commercial
Okay.
for a televangelist. And I actually somewhere keep that check. I think it was $1,600 for one day's work, which was, as an
How long ago
starving
was
act
that? That was back in the
back
80s.
in the 80s. It was way back
That's
when.
big money back in the
Oh, it was
80s.
huge money.
Yeah.
It was huge money. I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. So I kept the check to this day. What that means though is then it's a buyout, so you don't see anything after that. It's not like, a lot of commercials you get money every time they play. This was a buyout, but it was still great. It was great money for. I just played this sultry teenager seeking God or something like that. But anyway, yeah, no, that was my very first acting gig, and I loved those days because, as I said, I would jump onto a play, and go touring with a theater company. Then I'd come back and I'd star in a Canadian film. Then I'd do a fun commercial. And commercials were always fun to work on because all the actors, so we're all like,
Yeah.
I don't know, it just always was like a party scene. We were having fun. The only commercial, and I know you didn't ask me this, but I'm just going to ramble because
No,
I
no, go
ramble.
for it. Go for it. Love
Um,
it.
but this one commercial that I had the worst time ever with was I can't drink milk. It's
Okay.
not an allergy, but I don't know. I hate milk. I think because when I was a little girl living in Japan, as I mentioned to you, they would serve us this heated powdered milk. And it was just gross. It was this horrible powdered milk and it tasted horrible and I could barely gag it down. And I had this one teacher that would kind of come around and slap us with a ruler saying, drink that milk, in Japanese. And then once a month it'd be very exciting because it'd be chocolate milk and we'd be so happy and it would just be it'd be that same powdered milk with brown coloring. I mean, it was horrible. But anyway, so I've had an aversion to milk forever. So my agent says, "Oh, you're doing this commercial for Shape." And Shape was a brand of dairy products in Canada that had milk, yogurt, and cheese or cottage cheese or something. And he said, and I said, well, I can't do the milk. He goes, no, 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 you're doing yogurt, which I love yogurt. So
Yeah.
I was happy. I come out on set, and it's this beautiful, beautiful set out by the ocean and everything. And I'm supposed to be this pregnant mom and I start to look at the script, and I'm writing a letter to my mother about pregnancy and how it's affecting me. And in the um and right in front of me is this beautiful frothing glass of milk. And I saw that. I'm like, what? So I quickly called my agent, and I was like, I can't do this. Seriously, I cannot do it, because you have to drink it, take after take. I said, I will buy out this commercial. I don't care. I cannot do it. I'll gag. I can't do it. And he's like, stop it. Don't be so ridiculous. I said, I can't do it. He says, all right, put me on with the producer. So they talk for a long while and he explains it was a mistake. I thought I was getting the yogurt. So they were able to rework it so that I'm going to take the glass of milk and I have to look like it's the tastiest thing on the planet that I want this refreshing bubbly glass of milk, and just as it's about to touch my lips, my baby cries and I have to, for that split second, make the decision between drinking or going to the baby. I don't know why the mother wouldn't just like take a slug and go, but anyway, they worked it out that I look at it lovingly and go, put it down and go to the baby. So I didn't have to drink the dang milk. But anyway, silly thing, commercial.
Have you tried UK milk, British milk?
Well, I have milk and tea is fine, and I love like clotted cream. Because my grandparents lived in Devonshire,
Right.
and we would have, and they had a farm actually, so we'd have the lovely, lovely clotted cream. But it's just too weird to. I don't know. I've gone too long with not a phobia, but no, I
I
can't
can
just
break
drink
your
a glass.
phobia. When you come
Mm,
over to Birmingham,
mm,
pop into a sweet shop, go into a fridge, get half a pint of cold semi-skim milk, cold,
okay.
and try that, and your phobia will be gone because it's
You
that
think?
good. I
Really?
know it's that good, that good.
Okay.
Um,
Maybe.
or if I
Well,
come down and I meet you, I'll bring you. I'll bring you a
okay.
carton of milk, and you try it.
Okay, and I'll try it without
Yeah.
gagging. Oh, just the thought of, I don't know, it's so funny. Phobias are so weird, it's just this
Well, it's
I have
not because my mum's Italian, and every time she used to do a dinner, she used to put chickpeas in it.
okay.
And she did it with everything, with the spaghetti, with lasagna, with everything.
Oh, really?
Chickpeas. So now, if someone shows me a tin of chickpeas, I would literally hit them on the head with it. I'll just
Ah, no. Oh, it's not terrible. Yeah.
yeah.
I guess she was trying to add a little more protein and crunch.
Yeah. But
Something.
now I just can't. It's like my
No.
wife; she can't have jam sandwiches because that's all the parents used to make them every day when they came from school. Jam
Oh,
sandwiches, jam
right.
sandwiches, jam
So
sandwiches.
she's
So if I go, there's a nice jar of jam now. So
now
I totally get it.
so no chickpeas and no jam in your
No,
house, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I know
Yeah.
I love jam, so
Oh,
I have to
right.
sort of buy it on the quiet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So let's go to before we get to the juicy Nightmare on Elm Street stuff. Let's talk about Stakeout because that's a fantastic film.
Thank you. Yeah.
Richard Dreyfuss
Rich and
doesn't
Emilio Estevez, who is
Emilio
Charlie Sheen's
Estevez.
brother. Yeah. Very
What a
talented guy.
cast!
Oh,
How did that happen?
that was marvelous. So, I had been brought into audition for it. And I think originally was auditioning for one of the cops, a role of one of the cops. And I was chatting with the director, Roger Spottiswoode, I believe was that one, unless I'm having that mixed up with Shoot to Kill. But I think it was Rogers, or it might have been John Badham,
I have
one of
to
the two.
tell you now. Yeah,
Yeah,
John Badham.
John Badham. Okay,
Yeah.
so John Badham. So I had gotten on a nice long conversation with him, and this is something advice to actors. If anyone's listening out there for auditions, I found that if you can find something interesting and personal about the director, um, it just really, really helps for your audition because then then you have an opportunity to chat with them. and it can make or break an audition, because then you get out of the, you know, audition mode, and they get to see you as a person, and it just goes a long way. Anyway, so um, my boyfriend at the time had read an article in Fangoria magazine, interviewing John Badham, because John Badham had done something way back when with horror, like, I don't know, so sort of Shakespearean horror or something. I don't quite remember what it was, but it was something kind of interesting. So I had that little tidbit in my head. So I asked him about it, and it was a very, you know, random thing. And he's like, "Oh, you know about that?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I read the article." So we got talking, and I think he just liked me. So he wanted me to be in a bigger part than just being a cop. And so, and it was all dependent on my height, because I had to be 5'5" or shorter, because that's Emilio Estevez's height. He was 5'5". So so I got the part. And it was such a fun set to be on. Richard Dreyfuss, first of all, Emilio Estevez is the sweetest, really, really intelligent, intellectual, nice, calm guy. He's so different than his brother Charlie Sheen. Just, they're like night and day. And I got to know Charlie quite well when I was in LA. Well, not quite well, but you know. Um, but Emilio was just a wonderful guy. And when we were filming, he had just had that breakup with the one that ended up marrying Demi Moore. Um, but so I got to wear the beautiful ring that he had made for her. But he was just a really generous soul, very, very sweet. And we spent a lot of time together filming, and then off the set as well. And then Richard Dreyfuss was also lovely. And we had, so our scenes weren't technically together. So there was a scene where Emilio Estevez is in bed, and Richard Dreyfuss calls him. Um, and I walk into the room, and I end up in bed with Emilio while he's on the phone with Richard Dreyfuss. Well, most actors, especially somebody big like Richard Dreyfuss, would normally not even show up on set that day. Like, they would just let somebody else, because they're off screen. He wasn't on screen at all that day. So they just have somebody else, one of the set, you know, the ADs or something, read his lines. But Richard Dreyfuss is, you know, just a true professional and an actor's actor. So he came on set and delivered all the lines, but he would ad lib stuff, you know. so so he says at one point, he goes, "Kiss Carol for me." My character's name was Carol. So Emilio's like sort of kissing me, and it's on the phone, right? So they can't see each other. But Richard says, "No, lower," which, you know, wasn't on the script. And then on one of the takes, suddenly, as soon as we finished filming the scene, I hear threesome. And Richard comes running in front of the camera. The camera's still rolling. They hadn't said cut yet. And he comes running into this on set and jumps on the bed so that I'm sandwiched between Emilio Estevez and Richard Dreyfuss. And I'm like, what? It was so funny. And then so the director, John Badham, goes, "I want in on the fun too." So he jumped in. I mean, I was in, sounds terrible, but I was in bed, clothed underneath. But anyway, with these three, you know, incredibly talented, you know, super famous, super talented guys. So it was very funny. I would give anything to find that footage. You know, I'm sure it was on the cutting room floor, but you never know. Maybe somebody pocketed it. I don't know, because it's just funny. Maybe
If
one
anyone's
day.
watching that has some footage, let us know.
Yeah, yeah. If anyone has it, I wonder if one day, like, I'll be, maybe after I die, they'll suddenly find it and put it on, you know, put it up. But it would be very, very funny. Anyway, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was marvelous. And Richard worked with me. I had it was called ProTrack, professional training for actors. I would, myself and another actor would put on workshops for our local actors, and we'd get different stars and directors and different people to come in. And so while we were there filming, I asked Richard Dreyfuss if he would be willing to come and talk, and he said absolutely. So the day before he was going to come to my workshop, I went with my boyfriend to the local grocery store, because back then you'd get movies from the grocery store. They'd have VHS tapes, if you people know what those are,
Oh, I'm sure,
back in the
100%.
olden days. Yeah. So those VHS tapes would be like, you know, in these little racks in front of grocery stores, and you could just, you know, rent them. So anyway, so I was going through looking at all these, trying to find all of his movies so I could just quickly watch them so I could respond if he mentioned one of them. And suddenly I get this big bear hug from behind, and I was like, "What?" And I look around, and it was Richard Dreyfuss. And
Oh
my
wow.
boyfriend, yeah, and my boyfriend's jaw just dropped to the floor because he's like, "What? Like this is really Richard Dreyfuss?" And I said, I was like, "Whoa!" I said, and I was personally shocked that he recognized me through the door, from just meeting. Like, of course I recognize him, but we were on set for just 1 or 2 days at that point that he saw me. So how he recognized me, I don't know. But anyway, he came in, he gave me this big bear hug. He says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm looking for movies." And he goes, "Oh, what kind of movies?" And I said, "Well, yours actually." And he goes, "Oh, those are the best kind." And then I asked him, I said, "Do you watch your movies again? Like, do you go back and watch your old movies?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I do." He goes, "But I always like fast forward, bullshit, bullshit. Oh, me,
Yeah.
bullshit, bullshit, me." So he was just a lovely, was a really
I
nice
think
gentleman.
every single behind the scenes I've ever seen, Jaws, Close Encounters, all the other actors always say it was amazing to work with. Such a sweet guy.
Such a sweet
But
guy, yeah, and so talented and funny.
did you sort of have what's the word? Like what's the word when you meet a famous celebrity and you're
Yeah, like star. Was I
starstruck?
starstruck?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, I wasn't Star Trek. I mean, I was honored to work with him. The only actor I ever was starstruck. I mean, like because I worked with, you know, well, Johnny Depp was, but I mean, at the time it was more like a teen heartthrob guy. So
Mm,
it wasn't a big. I didn't find myself starstruck. The only time I would say that I was starstruck was Katharine Hepburn.
wow.
I got to be on a TV movie of the week with her, and I think it's called Mrs. Delafield Slept Here or something like that. Um, and it was towards the end of her life. One of the, I don't know if I don't, it might have even been the last film she ever did. I'm not quite sure, but it certainly was towards the end. Um, but this was in Vancouver, and um, it was her character was supposed to, she was a writer, a novelist, a famous novelist. And if I recall correctly, it was something to do with her agent saying, your books are too highfalutin tootin', they're always about kings and wealthy people. You need to write more about the common people.
Sure.
And she's like, "Well, I don't know any common people," and so my character was her literary agent's secretary. So every time she'd come into the office, I would be there and I'd greet her and stuff. And well, one of the things I remember is I got a amazing sweater, a beautiful outfit from wardrobe that I actually got to keep, which was lovely. But anyway, so we had this scene where she's trying to figure out what a common person would be like, and she
Yeah.
looks at me, and I can't remember my character's name. Say it was Carol or something. She's like, "Oh, Carol, where do you live?" And I said, "Oh, Hoboken, New Jersey," which at the time I had no idea where that was, but now
Mm,
that we live very near it. But anyway, um, and then she talks to me for a little bit, and there's the possibility that she's going to come and stay with my family. Um, and then maybe she ends up staying with some other family. I can't quite remember what it was, but we had 3 scenes together. Not, nothing big, but short little scenes. Um, and it was just amazing working with her. We got to all read in a church. We all sat down before filming and read it like a play. The
mm.
whole cast sat around, and she was, super elegant, super wonderful. And when she came in, somebody jumped up from the desk and ran over to get her a chair, and she's like, "Oh, I'll get it myself," and she gets the chair, and she was just like you imagine, in a nice sweater, what you guys call jumper,
Jumper,
right?
jumper, yeah.
And blue jeans, and her hair just tied up in a knot, and no makeup, looking beautiful. And she just came and sat down, lovely. Um, but then they had the screening for this movie, and I was invited. So the private screening, I was all excited. I invited my agent and my boyfriend at the time. And when we arrived, I remember seeing the two producers who were just lovely men, and they looked at me, and I remember thinking, that's an odd look when I saw their reaction when they saw me. And it just sort of got tucked away in the back of my mind. And I went and sat down. And so I'm sitting between my boyfriend and my agent. And, the film is going on. And I nudged my, boyfriend, "Okay, here it comes. Here's my scene. Oh, and my scene was cut. And I was like, "Oh, that's a bummer." So, I was a little disappointed.
Oh,
So then we were watching a little longer. I'm like, "Okay, well, here comes my next one." Okay, watch. Shh, be quiet. Watch. Here I come.
yeah.
Oh. and that was cut too. And then my heart just sunk. I was completely cut out of the thing.
Oh,
And I was mortified. I was embarrassed. I was confused, sad, angry, everything, like horrible. And my agent's like tapping my hand saying, shh, it's okay, it happens. And when I went to leave, I was trying to slink out of there. Like I was so embarrassed and mortified. And the producers saw me and they grabbed me and they said, "We are so, so very, very sorry. Your scenes were so adorable. We actually loved them. But in editing, you're a film director,
yeah,
time, there's a time constraint, and we still had, another 5 minutes we had to shave, and we're looking and looking. We didn't want to do your scenes, but if we did one, we had to do all three. It didn't make sense because otherwise it just wouldn't make sense. Like logically, either you're there with the agent or you're not, and the rest of the conversation wouldn't work. So we had to cut you, and they said, but because it was so late towards the end of the whole post production, that they never realized that they had already sent out invitations to me because they didn't think that they were going to be cutting my scenes. So they felt really, really bad. Um, had I known better, or if my agent was thinking, he should have gotten the footage anyway, because I could at least use that in my reel. It's me with
yeah.
Katharine Hepburn, for God's sakes. Or even if I'm not allowed to for whatever reason, I would have it, which would be lovely to be with Katharine Hepburn. But I didn't. I was just all sad and mortified at the time. They ended up using me in another film because, I guess just to show their apology.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my long, long, long story for who I was starstruck.
Yeah.
Yes, I was starstruck when I met her. Like
It's
she's a legend.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's difficult as a director, when you got to cut scenes and you got to cut people out. It's so heartbreaking
Right.
for directors because we know the hard work people put in and performances, but sometimes it gets so tight.
Yeah.
And and sometimes not only that, the scene doesn't work very well, or and you have to pace it right. And so I totally get it. It's heartbreaking. That's why I tell any of my cast, don't say anything yet until
Right.
we know you're in the movie, you're in the final cut.
Right. Right.
So let's get on to Nightmare on Elm Street. That's what we're here for. Um, that is awesome.
My baby.
Do you know what? Baby Freddy is actually repulsive and very sweet at the same time.
He's adorable. I love him. Look at his
I
eyes.
need to get one of
Ooh.
these.
Yes, and we actually do have there's with this too, everything you asked me, there's a story. So this was the only one in the whole world.
Yeah.
This woman in Turkey, Ahu Chol, I think. I don't know how to actually pronounce her name. I found on Instagram, made beautiful, she makes incredible sculptured heads. And I asked her to make me a Freddy because I can't afford the real David Miller, the large one that I get to autograph for fans, but I don't have one. And I thought, how the heck can me, the mom, not have my own baby? So she made this for me,
Yeah.
which was
It's
wonderful.
your son.
Yeah. So, but then recently, well, earlier in the year when they had the earthquake in Turkey,
Okay.
her home got, she had a lot of damage on her home, and they were having a little financial issues. So she needs money. So I said, okay, well, if you can make a mold and a cast from the one you made for me, and make 4 of them, I will sell them for you. So I have 4,
Yeah.
and they actually they're available on my website. So
I will post a link
here.
in the description below, guys, and I will be definitely ordering one. Do you ship to the UK?
Yeah, although it'd be heavy. I mean, what we could do if you want to save on shipping, um, if you can wait, because it's only September that will be in Birmingham, I could ship it out of Birmingham maybe, or you can come pick them up or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Either way, but yeah, we would
We'll
ship.
do
It's
that.
just you'd
Yeah,
have to pay for shipping.
yeah, I'll definitely be ordering one of them, 100%. Because I love the one you've got in the corner there.
Yeah. Oh,
That's got the body and everything.
the
Yeah,
whole body. Yeah, that
it's
one's pretty
so
cool
cool.
too. Yeah, that one somebody did on a 3D printer.
Yeah, I've
He's
got a
really
3D
cool.
printer right next to me. So
So there you go. Yeah.
yeah,
So they're really, yeah, I love my baby Freddy. And he does become lovable if you watch my silly videos that I put on my Instagram and my it, what is that thing? TikTok. Because I animate them, with those apps that make their mouths move.
oh yeah, yeah,
So like I have one where it's a duet between me and Freddy, like I'm in the nun's habit. It might have even been that one, or I'm not sure, just a photograph, but I animated it. So they're singing the Lion King, "Hey, Maenya, dabba-dee, dabba-doo," and he's like,
I've
"Ooh,"
got to go for your Instagram. I've
silly.
definitely got to have a look.
Yeah, the things that I post embarrass the heck out of my adult sons, as they would probably embarrass the heck out of Freddy too, but all my sons. But I don't care.
Yeah, but
We're here to.
it's a part of your life that was huge. You know,
Uh,
Nightmare on Elm Street 5 is my favourite out of all the Nightmare on Elm Street films. Dream
are
Child.
you telling me the truth?
I swear to God, as I'm sitting
I
here now,
love you.
Nightmare
Good for.
Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. I thought the practical effects were just for the 80s were just fantastic.
Weren't they
They were
amazing?
some of the
Yeah,
best, and they still hold up today,
I think so.
which is great. The bit where the whole church explodes and he stood on the pew and
Yeah,
he picks his hat up and he
yeah,
puts his hat on and then the claw comes down. That to me is the best scene in the whole franchise of
awesome.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Good for you. You see,
Yeah.
we got the same taste. I think the sets out of any of the sets were the most amazing. These huge gothic dark sets, and the kills were so creative. I loved it. I mean, it's I don't know, in the US it's the most often the least liked out of them. People just are weird. I think people don't like it because there weren't enough kill. There's a lot of reasons I think people don't like it. I think also because it came so quick on the tail of four,
Mm.
the people that were really into the 3 and 4, into the dream team, the dream
Warriors.
warriors, I think there was a lot of disappointment that they were all killed off and everything changed and Lisa's new and new Amanda, everything, but I think if the same people, if they saw it, if New Line had held off for a year or certain, or 2 years for sure, and put out the exact same film, I think that it would have been received so much better, so much differently, because people would by then be hungry for another one again. They would have had enough time to move off of that, Dream Warrior, be anxious to see the continuation of Lisa's character of Alice, and be looking forward to. But I think, I don't know, there were a lot of reasons that it's not one of the most popular. But then again, hey, people hated 2 forever and ever and ever until now. It has a whole
Well,
new life.
first one was great. First one's all-time classic.
Yeah.
Second one was okay. Third one was really good. 4 was okay. 5, as you know, I love it to bits. 6, I thought got a bit strange, even though it was good. I enjoyed it. It just got a bit strange with the video games and stuff like that. But 5, I think, going back to what I just said, the practical effects in it are some of the best I've ever seen in an horror film. And they still hold up today, especially with the animatronics in the movie with baby Freddy and
that baby Freddy, he was incredible. When the one when he comes out, you heard I don't know if you've heard my story of when he jumps out. So I give birth to Freddy. And then we hear the all those little sound effects. And the other nun is holding on to him, and he's wiggling around, and where I'm saying, that is no creature of God, give it back, and it leaps out of her hand, and then you see it jump to the ground, and then that's when you see the animatronic Freddy looking up, with his face and everything, and then he scurries away. That little animatronic Freddy, I mean, oh my God, that was an amazing little creature. Like, that would be amazing to have. And then all just the different, iterations of him as he gets bigger and bigger with the different actors that they used. And I've told the story many times, so I'm not going to repeat it too long, but the one that leapt out of her hand was a cat. So they dressed up this cat, and it was sort of an orange tabby cat, and they covered it with blood and guts and stuff just in case you could see it, just so that the camera would see movement, something leaping from her hand. So she's holding this thing, and she releases it, and it leaps down to the ground, and then it cuts away to that Freddy. I thought that was really clever. It was, when you talk about the special effects, it was such an ingenious combination of the simplest, weirdest, things that are just like the Freddy coming out of my stomach. I was so looking forward to it because I'd been watching all these different special effects on set of other people's scenes and thinking, oh, good, I can't wait. What are they going to do? And it turned out it had to be my own stupid hand. And I'm like, what? That I had to go like this with my own hand was just ludicrous. But it's what I had to do. But I mean, I remember the scene where, we're in that Escher stairway set, and where I'm going to be coming down, and I mean not Amanda, Alice, Robert's coming out of Alice.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, you may have heard the story, but anyway, they brought in this actor, a paraplegic who didn't have legs, and he comes just rolling in on this little dolly, and he's like, "Hey guys," I guess they know him, and they pick him up, and they made a harness for him because he doesn't have legs. They made a body harness, and they attached that harness, so it's his arms and legs and torso. They attach
Okay.
it to Lisa's body. Then they attach it to her body, put her clothes over it. He's dressed as Freddy. They also had little wires that attached him to the ceiling that you can't see. Maybe you can if you look really closely. I'm
What
not
was
sure.
weight?
To hold his weight, and then out of her back was the electron or animatronic legs. That they attached, like, so that there's kicking out of the back. So the front was an actual actor. So she's like having a little man attached to her. you know,
Yeah.
and like having to act with another guy, like, glued to you and this close to your face. It was kind of interesting, but they did so many wild things,
I
and
spoke to Lisa a few months back, and she never mentioned that. That's
oh, okay.
pretty cool. I
Yeah, I
always
thought it was
wondered
really
how they
cool.
did that. I wonder. I actually thought it was. I don't know how. I was trying to sort of suss the effects out, and couldn't. And I didn't want to say, oh, it could be a guy with no legs.
Right, yeah, but it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Which who knew? I mean, I guess you can find anybody in Hollywood. Everybody's an actor, so and it must be a great. I mean, it's a totally niche ab- ability. I mean, what one would consider a disability then becomes an ability, right? You have the ability as that actor that very few have. You know, I'm sure there's not that many roles for guys without legs, but when they do have it, you have an opportunity. Hopefully, they use the guy, rather than than CGI. Like, use the guy
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
there's a guy that if he can act. I mean, I'm not really sure. I mean, in that scene, it was just whatever it was. He probably mostly does stunts or something, but I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I thought there were so many amazing effects on that set.
Well,
Really fabulous to watch.
I've always shoot me down if I'm wrong here.
Yeah.
I've always thought, because back in the 80s, I always thought it was very difficult to get someone to actually play a nun in a horror film, because
Okay.
then that was sort of be sort of like crossing the line back then in the 80s to, someone playing a nun in a horror film. But I always said to myself, I think Amanda is the original nun, which probably inspired films like The Nun
The
and
Nun.
the Conjuring
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I think that's sort of where because even though Amanda was good,
She was good, but in a
she was
horror
creepy. Yeah, she was creepy as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I'm thinking so The Exorcist, I mean, that's a priest. And wasn't that even before? Exorcist
that
must
was,
have
yeah,
been
it's a
before.
praise, but I think with the nun,
She was the first. Yeah, she could be
yeah,
the
I think
yeah.
she was the original nun.
Wow. Wow. There you
I
go.
don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I'm showing off all my art up in the back
yeah,
there
go for
while
it.
we're
We'll have a
talking.
look.
Yeah.
We'll have a
Yeah.
look.
Yeah. In that corner, the artist that did, I love this. It's Amanda with Freddy as a kid, and
Yeah,
Pamela Voorhees with Jason as a kid playing on the playground. you know, I
that's
actually,
awesome.
yeah, I actually asked the artist to do that because I just thought it was would be so funny. There's such different parenting techniques, So Amanda's trying to pull her kid back, you know,
Yeah,
whereas Pamela's like, get him, encouraging her kid to get him. Which I've been cast in a
really cool
Friday.
artwork there.
Yeah, aren't they so many cool ones? I've been cast in a Friday the 13th fan film to play Pamela Voorhees.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so that'll
Well,
be
all up here. I wish I could share. I can't turn my camera around. I've got Jason
all
everywhere
the
up there,
Jason stuff. Okay,
and Freddie
there you
and
go.
all that business there.
Well, they're actually next to Amanda. You can see that Jason, the hawk that has it's hard to see. Actually, well, no, but anyway, it's got Freddy's claw, and it's got it's got the nun's rosary beads. So it's kind of an
Okay.
homage to the two of them, combined.
Oh, it's quite funny because about 3 years ago, I was in LA and I met Kane,
Okay,
um,
yeah.
and I assumed Kane would be this huge guy, and
And
I'm actually a lot bigger than he is. I
oh, are
was
you
like,
really?
hang on, yeah,
Okay.
he was
Yeah.
literally down here on me. And
Okay,
I
so
had
you're
my
tall. Yeah.
arm around his
Yeah.
sort of shoulder, and I'm like, this actually feels quite good. I'm actually bigger than
Taller than. Yeah.
I'm actually bigger than Jason.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny. Well, I'm trying to think which one, who is the tallest? Because one of the guys is pretty darn big that plays Jason.
Was it Finny Myers? I don't know. No, is it?
Maybe now I'm starting to get some of my guys mixed up too, because at the cons you get to know the Jasons, but you also get to know the Michael Myers. You get to know everybody. But anyhow, yeah.
So
But aren't they?
how did you get the role? Well, sorry, that's the second one to ask you. Actually. How did you get the part in Nightmare 5?
Oh, so Nightmare 5. So that was it was so bizarre. So I had been, working in Canada. I was, acting. I mean, even though I'm a U.S. citizen, I'd gone to university, high school, everything in Canada. So I started acting in Vancouver, doing all kinds of stuff, as I mentioned. Um, and in 1990 or 89 is the year that both Matinee, this film here, and then also this one over there, Quarantine. Um, I star in those two films. Um, well, I'm the lead in Quarantine. Matinee is an ensemble
I'm gonna
cast.
have to buy them.
Yeah, and so those two films, we had the premiere at the Vancouver Film Festival, and both films premiered. So I had like the whole red carpet treatment. Like I was the it girl in Canada in Vancouver for that 5 minutes. But anyway, I had been acting all the time at that point, doing really, really well in my career. Um, but my boyfriend, who we'd had a long, long on and off, one of those codependent relationships where we can't be together but we can't be apart kind of thing. He moved away. He moved to LA. He wasn't even there for the screening. And right afterwards, truly, it was just because I wanted to be with him. I left Vancouver and moved down there. And it was career wise like horrible because in Vancouver, the casting directors and everybody was like, "What? Oh, she thinks she's too big for us." They hate when people get big and then move to LA, that because it happens all the time. So they were kind of pissed off. But at the same time in Los Angeles, even though I had this great resume, they didn't know me. The casting directors, nobody knew me. But because I had played Emilio Estevez's wife and we were friends, he introduced me to his dad's agent, Martin Sheen.
Right.
Martin Sheen's agent. She only represented the Sheen family, Martin Sheen, Charlie Sheen, and Renee Estevez. She was more of a manager, but she was working kind of as an agent and as a favor maybe to Emilio. I don't know, but she took me on. And we had a premiere of my film Quarantine, so we had invited her to it, and that's how we got her to take me on. And so the very first audition she set me for was Nightmare on Elm Street. And she
Okay.
said, and I remember at the time I said, "Oh, I don't know. I'm not really into horror films. Excuse your fans." This was before. Give me a
Yeah.
break, everybody. Don't start yelling. I was not into horror films. I liked scary movies. I liked ghost movies, but I didn't like gore. So
Mm.
anyway, but she said, "No, no, no. I want you to meet the director, Stephen Hopkins. He's Australian. He's up and coming. You really should meet him. So go do this audition." I went, I did the audition. I ended up talking with Stephen Hopkins for a long time, and we were joking about the character and how do we play her, because is she dead? Is she a ghost? Is she alive? How do we really play this character? And so we tried it all kinds of different ways. And then at the end of it, while I was sitting there, he goes, "Okay." And I said, "Oh, thank you." And I go to get up, and he's like, "No, no, no, I mean, okay, like you've got it." I said, "Pardon me?" And he goes, "You're our Amanda." I'm like, "What?" I've
Nice.
never had that experience where, because you usually have to have a callback and then a screen test and go many, many processes before you actually get the role. So to be told right there and then, I was like, wow. I, maybe they were just in such a super rush. They had to just like grab somebody, but either way, it worked
Yeah.
out for me. So
So
that's how I got it.
I mean, obviously the Elm Street series was already established. They were already huge. Did you feel pressure going into this? Was you nervous about it, or did you think, oh, it's just another movie?
Yeah. No, I had no idea. I honestly had no idea. Um, it, because I wasn't big into horror films. I had seen Elm Street 1 in college when it came out, the first Elm Street, and it was scary, and I did enjoy it. I really did. And I remember being intrigued by the concept that, it gets you through your dreams, and it's your fears that can, really be your downfall, which I think is one of the strongest in five. Like five really shows how it's your fears. I mean, they do it throughout, but five really, each person's individual fear is what got them, which is kind of a nice life lesson. But I remember sitting in the movie theater when I saw the first Elm Street. I was in theater school with my other actors, and we're watching this movie, and I had no clue sitting there in the audience that, like, in 4 or 5 years, I'd be playing this guy's mom. Like, isn't that
Yeah,
crazy?
yeah.
But so when I was cast, I of course knew Nightmare on Elm Street. I knew who Freddy Krueger was, but I had no idea how big it was, and I certainly had, and none of us, including Robert, I don't think, had any idea it was going to be as massive as it is now, and as long lasting that it would,
Oh,
that has become a cult classic, but
yeah.
which is 100% to do with the fans. I mean, I say this every time because I mean it. It's the fans that have kept this alive. It's the fans that have kept it vital. Otherwise it would have just been another 80s film come and gone, but it's
They still
not.
want more. We all
Yep,
want more. We all
yep,
want more, and I think that's the beauty of it. I mean, that's what these films have done to the fans. That's what these films have done to cinema. People just want more of these films. They want Robert back. You know, they're just incredible movies.
which is why, have you heard about my book?
Nope, but I'll be buying that as well.
Yeah. Oh, you guys all should. So it's The Kruger's Curse, A Nightmare Before Elm Street. And this, because the fans want more, because we all want more, and because they haven't done a sequel yet, or prequel, you
Yeah,
know. And there's definitely some people that, especially with horror villains, they don't really want a whole past. But that's few and far between. More people are interested in a past. Like some people are like, I don't need to know if he was abused. I don't need to know what made him. I just want him to be this killer. I don't want to understand him. But I think most of us do want to understand,
yeah, definitely.
and so number six, whether we liked that movie or not, in the episode, gave us obviously the most of his background. That's where we learned he was married, that he killed his wife in front of his daughter. He had a daughter. We learned about his abusive stepfather, and Alice Cooper played, and all that stuff. But it was never really put together in a prequel. And I, as the actor playing his mother, had always, I've lived with this character for 34 years, and I always wondered, what it would be for a mom to give up her kid. She didn't want to. That was the decision I made as when I played Amanda, was that she did not want to give him up, even though when we see her in five is a totally different story, and what people need to understand is when she's saying, your birth was a curse and all that kind of stuff, and where she's trying to destroy him. Well, that's because now he has had a lifetime of killing and murdering, and not only is she a nun, so in the eyes of God, she can't be condoning all this killing, but also as a mother, we feel responsible for the people we brought into this world, and we brought in this killer, and he's taking all these lives. So as a mother, I feel it's my duty. I have to stop this killing. But also as a mother, he's my son, he's my baby. There's no way you want to destroy your baby. So anyway, but that being said, this all started with, I don't know how well you can see the image,
Yeah, it's
see
perfect.
her
Yeah,
face. So I found this Stephen P. Hughes is the artist. I found this image on Facebook or something years and years ago, and I always loved it because clearly it's me holding Freddy, but I just love the angst on her face. Just the what he shows in there encapsulates what I felt. And so I hunted him down. I found him, and I asked him about the image, and he said, "Oh yeah, you can have it," which was really, really sweet of him. But when I decided to write the book, I actually hired him, and I also hired a cartoon guy, Joe St. Pierre. I don't know if you're into comics, DC Comics and
yep,
Marvel Comics.
yep.
He's the one that does Spider-Man, and he also does uh, what the heck is that other one? That's not saying here. Spider-Man and whatever. Anyway, um, so I hired some artists to do work in this, and what this is the background story of the Kruger family from even a little before Freddy's born, even before Amanda's born. It gives you a little bit of background of this Kruger family, and what brought them to the US, because Kruger, they're German. And
Yeah.
then when Amanda was born, what made her become a nun? And then
Oh wow.
then it quickly comes up to Freddy being born, and so we see, like here, of course, this is the one scene that we do all know
Yeah.
from the movie, but then you have seen, like, you get to see something like this, a pregnant nun,
Yeah.
which probably none of us have ever seen.
No.
And then it follows through fairly close to what we've all learned in the movies. Like, I don't go against anything that's in the films, but I embellish it and I pull out the details that we don't know. Um, the jump rope girls.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Why do they always appear? Well, it was one of that's the one thing I'll give you away. It was one of the happiest memories he had as a child was with the girls, and they're singing 1, 2, buckle my shoe, 3, 4, shut the door, which was the thing
Yeah.
back
The
then,
anthem,
right?
yeah.
So maybe that could lead to something. But and look at this piece of art.
That's quality. Yeah, I love that with the
So
moon.
Freddy's being taken away, and there's the moon. There's Amanda reaching out for him, and the tree even looks like the glove.
Yeah.
And it takes us all the way through his getting married, him being taunted at school. I go into more detail too about the Alice Cooper character because that kind of interested me. Like, who was this guy beating the crap out of this kid? Like, what was his story? Why was he beating him up? Was he married? Like, who would have let just a man adopt a kid? So there must have been a stepmother too.
Mm.
What was that? What's that whole story? And then it takes us through what we learn, with him getting married, him killing his wife, and so forth. And then at the very end, it ends with him being taken by the angry mob of parents and burnt, and Amanda locking herself away
Yeah.
in the thing. So where this book, and it's a pretty quick read, and where this book ends is where Nightmare on Elm Street begins. So this is the prequel written by
Wow.
me in the voice of Amanda Kruger. It's in her voice. So as you read it too, as the fan, you will know things that she doesn't know,
Yeah.
because she doesn't know that he's a killer,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So it's
That's
definitely,
amazing.
yeah. And the first two prints that I did of it all sold out before I even got them back, and the response has been phenomenal. I'm actually going to be posting the most recent review, which was done by Wayne Burns, the Irish writer. He did
Okay.
the Elm Street. Um, he just wrote that book about the making of that Nightmare on Elm Street. He did a fabulous review, but all the fans have loved it, and they all say it's a
And
must read
this is available in your store, correct?
on my website. Yeah.
Which I will link in the
Yeah.
description below. So it'll be on the Instagram, it will be on Facebook, and it will be on the YouTube video below. So get over there and buy the book
Yes,
now.
awesome. I promise you'll enjoy it. And it's something, it's more food for us that are hungry for more Elm Street. And,
We are. I know
you
I
know,
am. I know
yeah,
I am.
I
So
think we all are.
was you? I mean, the films are huge. Did you ever think they would be as big? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely not. No clue. No clue. And
it
for,
must like freak you out a bit. It must be like, seriously?
yeah, and for decades, especially because I chose to walk away from acting, and oddly enough, Elm Street was the end of my career. Like when I did, I had the bulk of my acting career was all before I did Nightmare on Elm Street. And as I told you, I had this rich career in
Mm.
Canada. As soon as I did Elm Street, boom, I was in LA. They said, okay, she's a horror film actress, and they put me in that box. And the only auditions I got were for horror films, and they were, all these, you know, 80s horror films, and the scripts were horrible to me at the time. I'd come
Mm.
from theater school and whatever, and as I say, if I had taken them, I'd probably be a lot wealthier, a lot more famous right now. But it just wasn't. It just I didn't want to be put into one little box.
Yeah.
Having done all that, I didn't want to suddenly get my career get smaller. To just do horror films. And so I ended up leaving. I decided to, and it was other reasons I decided to leave. And I moved to Taiwan first for 9 months and taught acting and English. And then I moved to India and did volunteer work on a mobile hospital studying yoga and meditation for 2 years, out in the Tanza Valley of India.
Yeah.
And I was going to stay there the rest of my life until my spiritual teacher, my guru, kicked me out. Said, "You have karma in the world," and she sent me with a one-way ticket to New York.
Oh,
So I came to New York where I didn't really know anyone, and I ended up, I needed work, so I got a temp job, assuming I would go back to acting because that had always been my career. And I ended up meeting the man that I was to marry, who's my husband, and we decided to have a family. And I waited so late in life to have a family that I decided, you know what? I'm almost 40. If I'm going to have kids this late in life, I'm going to be home full time
mm,
for them. So I did. So I've stayed home full time. I taught acting on this. I actually did teach some acting, but and I did a little bit of community theater and a few student films, but mostly hid away from the acting world. And I was raising my kids, and it wasn't until um, Never Sleep Again came in. They wanted to do that. The what was his name? Uh, that directed that. I'm so bad with names right now. But anyway, Hut, Tommy, Tommy Hut, who did Never Sleep Again?
have a look. Um,
But that guy, Tommy Hutchinson, I'm saying it wrong, something like that. But
where are you?
while you're looking, I'll just continue to say that they somehow tracked down all the actors from all the Elm Street films, and found us in all our nooks and crannies. And I'll say I can speak for at least Nightmare on Elm Street 5 cast. Most of us were in hiding. Most of us had really walked away from the business. I mean, Lisa, I think Wilcox was the only one, like she was actively involved and she was going to conventions and such. People from some of the earlier Elm Streets were going to conventions, but the rest of us really weren't. And Tommy Hutchinson, I think that is his name. He was the one that he might have produced it. I don't know, produced it, directed.
Andrew Kasish and Daniel Farrens,
Oh, well then
the
maybe he was a
directors.
producer. Oh, so maybe
But
Tommy Hutchinson was a producer?
so he might. Let's have a look.
Tommy Hutchinson. He was he was somehow involved with that because maybe he was producer, but he was the one that got in contact with me for sure. Um, and that's where we first learned about that there was still interest in Nightmare on Elm Street. And that's where most of us learned about conventions. None of us even knew there was such a thing as conventions, horror conventions, until
Yeah,
that time. Yeah.
I'm just looking them up for you because you got me curious now.
Tommy Hutchinson.
Yeah, I've got another screen over there. I'm just having a look.
Okay.
Written by yeah,
I think
Tommy Hudson was a
Hudson.
writer.
Okay, well then that's it. That's
Yeah,
the guy.
yeah,
So and when he got in touch with us, he got us into a couple of conventions. This was I guess whatever year that came out, 13 years ago or so. And these were the first conventions most of us had ever been to. And we were like, what? And that's where we learned that, oh my God, there really is this huge of a love for such an old film. And we learned so much from the fans. And that's where I learned my appreciation. And the fans' excitement got me excited about it. And I went back and watched them all. And also started, because I started going to these conventions, I started watching other horror films. So I've, become a lot more versed in horror film, and I see its value in our society. It's not this, lowbrow thing
yeah,
that some of us were led to believe. But yeah, it's been an amazing journey, and I am still wowed what a big impact it's made on people, and I feel extremely honored to be a part of it because I had no clue. I had no idea back then.
yeah. What
You
was it
know,
like working with Robert?
working with Robert was for me. It was quick, I gotta say, because our scene. So he wasn't in the birth scene. He wasn't in the when they find me in the tower. My only scene with Robert was in the church, um, and in fact, the church scene, and then also the Asher, coming down the
Yeah,
stairs was with Robert. So we got to meet briefly. We didn't have. I mean, I think fans in conventions have way more time with him than I got to being on a film
yeah,
with him because he was in full makeup. I was in my outfit, my costume, and we had to go. It was always go go go, and there were 4 different sets going on at all given times, and as soon as if it was a take, then we moved on to the next set, and it was really really fast. So I have to say honestly, um, I think fans probably got more time with him. We didn't have a lot, but he was sweetheart, in our time together, and but it would have been so much more interesting because, playing his mom, we could have had some very interesting conversations.
Yeah.
But the other thing was my character never was in makeup, so I never was in the makeup trailer, and that's where can really have long time to chat with him. Um, this fall, the Terracon, I might be getting it mixed up with Scarefest. Please excuse me, anyone who's listening. But one or the other. One of the ones is the one out in Massachusetts. It's the one that he's going to be at, that I will be at, and this will be the first con we get together. So,
Yeah.
hopefully we'll have some time to catch up and chat.
And
I
what do
want to
you?
hear.
Sorry, go on. Sorry, go on.
I want to hear his reaction to the book. I did send him a copy. So
It's amazing.
yeah.
And what is your reaction to the remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street?
So I think, for me, unfortunately, or whatever it is, for me, like most of the Elm Street fans, or a lot of the Elm Street fans, it doesn't matter the fact that uh, Haley, Michael, not Michael Haley, and I'm thinking Michael Bailey, Bailey Smith, who played um, Super Freddy, the actor. Forgive me, what's his name? Who played
Oh,
the new Freddy? He's a fabulous actor,
yeah.
and his and I can see that they were trying to return to the scarier, the scarier Freddy, which I think it was. I think it did. They were successful in making it scarier. However, it's so late in the game. Like, for most of us, I'm sorry, but Robert Englund is Freddy Krueger. It's too long in our system. In the same way that it's like so long. I've disliked milk for so long that it could be really hard for me to like it, even if milk is good. I don't know if that's a good analogy, but in the same way, we've loved Robert as Freddy for so long that
Yeah.
it's really, perhaps when he passes away, if they do it, it'll be different. But I think
I
while
don't
he's
think
still
it
alive,
will. I don't think
you
it
don't,
will.
it,
I don't
even then,
because
well, only
he's
because,
right
I
here,
mean,
isn't he? He's
I
right
think
there.
the only, even then, I think it would be hard for fans, but the only thing I'm saying is that maybe people would be able to see it differently. Like, just try to just see it as its own thing,
Mm,
as opposed to comparing it to the Freddy we all know and love. You have to look at it. The only way it can work is for us to look at it with whole new eyes. Maybe a lot of us wouldn't be able to do it.
yeah.
Certainly for me, like, playing the mother. I'm sorry, but that's my boy. Like, Freddy's
Mm,
my boy. Like, I don't
mm,
have any. I watched that movie, and there's not a part of me that felt like I'm watching my kid.
mm.
I mean, not that I feel I'm watching my kid, but when I watch Elm Street films, I see it as my son. I do.
Mm.
I
Yeah,
do,
yeah,
because I played his mom. And with that actor, I didn't feel that at all. It was a stranger.
yeah.
So, yeah, I didn't enjoy it. It was just awkward and weird, but I still think it could be possible to do it well. It would just be a whole different thing. It would be taking on, can we do a remake of the concept of Freddy Krueger and Nightmare on Elm Street? You take the storyline, this guy who was abused and teased and taunted as a kid, who was also the son of a rape victim,
Yeah.
who has, dysfunctional chemistry in his blood, from whoever was his maniac parent. Um, and who had this abusive childhood, who then was tormented and then started to kill the kids of the tormentors and then was murdered.
Mm.
Now, that guy, could we, and his power is to be able to attack through dreams. Could we make an interesting movie with that same concept? I think it's possible. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think, again, if you look at it as an Elm Street fan, and as a Robert Englund fan, and as the Freddy we know and love fan, it would be very, very hard to do.
I mean, everyone I spoke to I said to him, what would you say if they made another Nightmare on Elm Street film? The first thing is, yeah, as long as Robert England's doing playing Freddy. As
Right.
long as Robert's playing Freddy. I think it's difficult because I've been hearing rumors apparently they're making another one.
Right. And they talk. I mean, there's been talk about
And they want,
what's his name from Flashdance?
oh,
That apparently Robert Englund was the one that said that he thought it would be cool if we all
Robert
have
wants to do
six
one more, doesn't he? So apparently he said he'd do one more.
on and off. That's changed back and forth. So never say never with Robert Englund. Never say never.
Yeah.
But who is it? The guy we all. Oh, Kevin Bacon.
Kevin. Yeah.
Supposedly Robert said he would like Kevin Bacon to play him.
Yeah.
I don't know. We all have what 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah, but the crazy thing about that comment is that if Kevin did play him, people would take him in because Robert said
it. Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool. Actually,
and
that's not a bad show. Actually, Kevin Bacon.
And especially if Robert was in it, like in some sort of either whether it's a flashback or a I don't know something, so that it really is like passing that. Maybe there's even a scene where he passes the hat. Literally, like the kid, Freddy drops his hat and Robert's this old guy that comes along, a janitor, and puts his hat. I don't know. That came to my mind just now. But symbolically passing the hat, maybe we could learn to
the powers get passed over
somehow.
Maybe we go through a phase where Freddy's not been able to get any souls or kids for a long time, and them demons that are possessing him and making him do these sort of things get fed up, and then they go, I think, right, into someone else now.
Well, there's also been talk about the Dream Child, with that Jacob, Alice's kid, because he did have that whole moment in before he was born of taking in these things and kind of almost joining with Freddy. So when he grows up, he could potentially be something. But I always thought, like, if Freddy ever did have to actually die, I think it should be his mom, because well, for certain it can't be anyone. Like, it can't be Michael Myers or Jason. Like, that can't happen. No way. They can't beat him. It'd either have to be his victims coming together, and in which case you can't do Alice or Heather. It'd have, Lisa or Heather. It would have to either be both of them, because otherwise it would be unfair. Maybe would you get all the main final girls and guys or whatever together? But I think for there to be the least amount of fighting, it could be his mom.
That would actually be awesome. And Expendables, of all the victims he's taken over the 6 films, not talking about the remake, talking about the whole 6 films, come together, team up to go after him.
Yeah, with Amanda either helping or not helping, but she's got to be there too.
I think Amanda should be the Sylvester Stallone of it. So she should be the one that gets all these together. Spirit comes back or something like that and gets them all together and say, look, we don't all team up and go and get him. He's gonna slay the next generation of children. That'd be a pretty cool concept.
It could be kind of interesting. But after you read my book, you'll see Amanda's like, it's an interesting one. And when they were, what I loved though was Freddy, his one kryptonite is his mom. He is scared of her. Like, she's the one thing he's scared of, which is pretty universal, right? People, not everyone's scared of their moms, but the mom could be the one thing that really has the power, because he came from her. So it was kind of poetic in a way. She took him back in to try to undo the damage that had been wrought on the world. But that whole storyline is very tragic.
It is actually, it is, but it's very well put together. And thank you for bringing Amanda to the screen for us. It's been really fantastic.
Thank you.
What's next for you? What's in the pipeline? What's happening?
So as I said, a lot of these conventions this fall, I have I don't know why on this list I don't have my one.
Are coming to Birmingham, and that's in September. Is that right?
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. And I'm going to try and get up there as well and say hi. But the links for the book and the shop will be in the description below, guys. So head over there and buy something cool today. Beatrice, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been
Thank you.
an absolute honor. Really,
Thank
really
you.
is. And as a Elm Street fan, I'm starstruck.
Ooh, your birth was the curse on the whole of humanity. I shall not allow it to happen again. You brought me back to be on your show, but now,
Go on.
I'll let you.
Oh, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll speak again soon. I think the fans will want it.
Perfect.
And I think it'll be really exciting. So thank you so much.
Good. All right. I'll definitely put you in touch. They're all around, so for sure.
You're an absolute sweetheart. Thank you so much.
All right. And hopefully I'll see you in Birmingham.
I will see you in Birmingham in September.
All right.
And I'll bring you some milk.
Okay, awesome. Maybe put chocolate in it.
Yeah.
All right. Okay,
Thanks
take
a lot,
care and
Beatrice.
take care to
Take
everybody
care.
watching. Bye.
Bye.
Again.